I'm really excited. I don't do a lot of these, as Kiwi knows, but this is a topic that's really near and dear to my heart, which is, how to run a profitable business. It is a major pet peeve of mine that there are a lot of really large companies in our space that suck up all the air in the room, okay, get all the headlines, whose executives have made tens of millions, hundreds of millions, even become billionaires on companies that to date are still not profitable. And you guys know which companies I'm talking about, right? I mean, look it up, look up their financials, like really big, like super big, very impressive companies, really big in revenues, but no profits, right? And, I've been working with teams for over a decade and a half, and, a lot of really famous, reputable, really big teams that win awards and records for lots of transactions. But when you really dig in, the owner of the team is really not putting away money. Therefore, a lot of revenues, a lot of volume, even a lot of GCI, but so many expenses that they're really not making a lot of money. So then you wonder, my gosh, like they're killing themselves. Like we all know how hard this business, and I think outsiders don't realize how hard this business really is. And, yes, we get enjoyment from it in lots of different ways, and sense of accomplishment and sense of independence, but you also need to squirrel some money away for a rainy day and do that in good times and bad. So I think that, digging in deep here with Mike, who's I've gotten to know in a short period of time, and who I think is literally one of the smartest cats that I've met in this business. I think he and I think very much alike. He suffers no fools. He goes right for the jugular. He's super smart, and his focus on the end result and profitability is, like I said, near and dear to my heart. So everyone, welcome, Mike Schumm, Profits Coaching. Welcome, Mike.
Thank you so much, Howard. I actually appreciate the opportunity, as my purpose in life is to help improve the quality of other people's lives, and having a platform like this to share is right in alignment with everything I want to do in my life. So thank you for the opportunity, first and foremost.
So I think, it would be great to kind of, level set and get everyone up to speed on your background, hear your story. How did you get here? How did you get to this place where you're coaching, some of the largest and some of the most famous teams in the world? Now, being said that, you do work with small teams, and you work with teams of all sizes. You're helping the Davids and the Goliaths, but you've also worked with absolutely the most famous teams in North America. So tell us about your journey. How'd you get here?
Yeah, it's a funny story, Howard. It should have never turned out this way. I'll tell you the truth is that I want me to go way back. My dad left when I was 4, Howard, and my mom thought rather than get a job, going on welfare would be a better option. So I actually lived on welfare, barely making monthly rent from the time I was 4 till probably about middle school, 11th grade. And food on the table, that was a good night, right? There was no extras. I never wore new clothes, right? I never got a chance to travel or go anywhere. So growing up like that, and of course, those are all rentals, a lot of bad landlords. So I started to make declarations probably around high school that I would never rent, I would buy a house. And then I had to figure out, obviously, I had no money. How can I make money? So quickly realized building a business could be my fastest route versus going to college for another 4 to 6 years and getting more debt and kind of extending my pain, that much longer. So I had one probably really great piece of advice growing up, and it was from my uncle, Howard. And he said, hey, anything you ever need to learn, anything you want to do, at that time before Google, is in the library. They have books. So I just took that to heart, and I said, I'm going to start a company. So I went to the library to learn how to build a business. So I built one, and then I built a second one, Howard. And then I saw some opportunity in Florida. So I just got in my truck and I moved to Florida one day, Howard. I think about it now, it was kind of crazy. I didn't know anyone. I didn't have many resources, but I was going to get there and I was going to figure it out.
Why Florida? What of all the states, why Florida?
Because I was in New York at that time, and I told you my first goal was to buy a house. So even though I was starting to make money, the price of real estate in Florida compared to here, matter of fact, that house I remember was probably like $38,000. I paid for it back in, I don't even know, many, many years ago. So I was able to buy a house. That's all I needed at that time. I wanted out of the rental and I wanted to be on my own. So I built a couple of companies there. They were successful. And then someone from New York said they had an opportunity to buy a foreclosure and flip that. And then I bought another meat distribution company. So I was just buying businesses, selling businesses, and no one told me not to do it, or you shouldn't be able to do this. So I'll just get a book and figure out, I get a VHS tape and figure out how to do it. And I would just,
Like just self-taught, self-learned. Did you have any significant mentors at all on this journey?
No, my mentors would be this, like take my construction business, for example. I started as a painting company, Howard, and I'd be at your house painting, and Howard would say, hey, Mike, you know anyone that could, do a bathroom renovation or put in a window? And I'm like, Howard, I can do that for you, but I need a few weeks. And what would I do for a few weeks, Howard? I would find the plumbers and carpenters in the marketplace. I'd go to Home Depot and ask them questions. I would get a book and a video. And 2 weeks later, I'd put your window in or your bathroom.
Incredible.
And that's how it grew. And then I had a son. So my son, Mikey, was born in 1999, and things were going well. At that point, Howard, I owned this rather large meat distribution company out of Manhattan, which meant that I was getting up at 3 a.m, driving over an hour and a half to Manhattan, loading up thousands of pounds of bloody fresh meat, delivering it all day. And long story short, I would not see my son sometimes for days because he'd be sleeping when I left the house at 4 a.m, when I got home at night. And I said, what the hell is this? Because when my dad left, when I was 4, Howard, I said, if I ever had a child, I would be there for that child. So I kind of realized I wasn't being there after his first year or two. So I sold the business. Went to the library, got a book. What should I do next, Howard? The book says, find something you love to do, you're naturally good at, the old hedgehog theory from good to great, and that should be your business. So I had a property management, a construction company. I had that stuff going, but I really wanted to travel. When I was poor, we never traveled, Howard. So I was like, wow, if I could do that, that'd be the perfect job. I could see the world and make money doing it.
Yep.
And then our mutual friend at one of those big companies that you may have mentioned earlier, Rich Barton, was on a project. He just invented Expedia a few years prior. And that commoditized, if you don't know, the whole travel industry. You couldn't get, commissions on airline fees, and there was the only way to make money was overseas, but then if they didn't pay you, you couldn't collect. So I'd already memorized every airport code in the country, Howard. I got a job in a wholesaler or a retailer, and I realized I had to pivot quick because I was gonna not make much money. So then construction, houses, what do I do next? Real estate just seemed obvious to me because I'd been in it in a couple different facets. So I got my license in 03. And then in 03, how to start? I started, but Howard, unlike probably most 99% of the people on this call today, what I do day one, I hired an assistant because that's what I did with all my other businesses. And what I do second, I hired someone to do my marketing for me because that's my other business. So I was building this real estate team because I didn't know better, like other businesses. And then our friend Gary Keller in 2003, lucky for me, wrote a book. The book was called The Millionaire Real Estate Agent, and it taught us how to build a 7th level team. That's all I needed, Howard. So I just got that book. I hired myself a mentor coach at the time. And then 20 years ago, Howard, I had a team of 15 agents, a marketing department, assistants, showing agents inside a brokerage, Douglas Elliman it was. And we're doing well. And I got a call, just, you're doing well. Would you ever consider being a coach? So I was like, why not? To me, it was another business, right? Another way to make money. So any way to make money was always a yes for me. And then I love challenges. If something's easy, Howard, I get bored really quickly. So this was a challenge. I knew nothing about it. So I got a few books and I started coaching. But here's the difference. What I was coaching was, I knew sales because all these businesses, Howard, I had to be the top salesperson in the company. So I knew sales extremely well. But when they got into my schedule, they kind of knew sales pretty well too. So I started teaching them business, right? All the stuff they didn't know. Because every client, Howard, that has ever gotten into my schedule has gotten in there the same way. They just happen to be a really good listing agent. And along the way, Howard, someone said, hire an assistant, hire some agents, hire someone to help you with the marketing. And they woke up one day and they're the leader of a whole bunch of people. They have no leadership training. They have no formal business training. And now they're in the middle of this chaos. And that's when I started getting these calls. So I was able to organize their businesses very quickly, but most importantly is my premise about life, Howard, and that one's business is to support your life and not become your life. So the business should create enough revenue so you can do whatever you want in your life and not be married to the business, but married to your family, your life, and whatever, hobbies you might have. So I started teaching them how to build systems and processes that would free up their time and operationalize their businesses. But always, Howard, to your point, I could care less about top line revenue. It was always bottom line. How much are we keeping? How much is going into our bank account? Because I've seen stuff like this. Would you rather own a team, Howard, at $2 million GCI and 33% profitability, or a $10 million team at 3% profitability? Right? That the $2 million team guys will make more than twice as much money as a $10 million team. And unfortunately, our industry with Real Trends, Howard, and all the other ways they compare teams is based on those metrics, like how many units you have or how much GCI. To me, it means nothing. Who cares if you sold 1,000 homes, but you have no money to show for it on there? So with that being said, my schedule quickly filled up when the word got out, Howard, that I had this skill set that was very unique to any other real estate coaches pretty much in the country. So we went from 10 clients to 20 to 30 to 40, and I think I capped out at 48, which meant, again, I was getting up at 3 in the morning, Howard, and doing 15 Zoom calls nonstop, going to the gym, eating dinner at least at 6, going to bed at 7, and just doing that cycle for about 3 years, I think. I just did nothing but this all day long.
Before really you did a call, you were getting up to like 48 calls a week or whatever it was. Like before you did a call, how much prep, if any, was involved before you actually met with a team?
Yeah, thanks for that question, because I learned a fundamental difference just in the last 2 weeks. If you would have asked me why people hire me, Howard, I would have told you because I can build your company quickly and I can make it very profitable. But started working with a new partner over here, and she'd mentioned, because she had a bunch of coaches, wow, now I see what's different. Here's the difference, Howard. When you work with me, you're not hiring a real estate coach. What you're hiring is a real estate consultant. And like a great surgeon, I'm going to get underneath the hood of your business. I'm going to look at your Maverick or your data, all the data that you have, your systems, your processes, and I'm going to diagnose your business for you because I know what it should look like. I know what the margin should look like. I know what the conversion number should look like. And I'm going to help you to discover where your money is being left on the table. And then beyond that, how we can grow the company very profitably together. The difference is I do all my calls this way, Howard, on Zoom. Why? Because many times I'm screen sharing their spreadsheets, marketing pieces, or other collateral I have. And also my coaching is not just about the data, because remember I told you the quality of their life is important to me. I want to see what you look like when you come to the call. You look all beat up and worn out, you're fresh. So I take a lot of my coaching into account on where you are at that time, and I'll meet you where you are. On the
occasionally we're going to get some questions, Mike, that come right in, and I'm going to ask them live.
Please.
Leslie asks, so as you start working with a client, right, and you start doing this, doctor's diagnosis, right? Mm-hmm. What are some of the key financial indicators or metrics that you're looking for, and that they're not really conscious of, and you're teaching them about these financial indicators and metrics that, so she wants to know, what should she be thinking about and obsessing over?
Yeah, that's a great question, because like I said earlier, very few know this because I got into real estate for sales, right? They didn't get in here to learn business percentages and stuff. So the answer to that question, Howard, is first start at the bottom line. You want to set a percentage profit for your business. And you're going to work backwards from that number, I would tell you. For say a team, a mid-sized to large team, I would, if you want a number, probably looking at least, I would hope 30%, right? 30 to 33%. I'd like to see a team there. So then it's very easy to work backwards, Howard, because about 8% of your business should be on operational expense. Should be spending about 10% of your GCI on marketing and advertising, another 12% for salaries, including employer contributions. And as long as your cost of goods sold number, how much you're paying your agents, is somewhere in the 40% range, you'll be 30% profit. But you got to stay within those margins. Otherwise, you overpay the agents. You're paying your agents 50, 60%, and it costs you 40% to run your business. You're down to single digit profitability real quick.
Can you remember, I don't want to put you on the spot, but can you remember like a really large team with really big GCI that actually was not profitable or barely making a profit?
Oh, no, I'm not going to call them out in front of.
No. I don't want to, like how large was?
Oh, how about 5 million in GCI with zero profit? Zero. Like bottom line.
I love it, because Alex asked, how likely is that teams that gross 5 million GCI have little to no profit? Was the actual question.
Oh, was it? I didn't see the question.
How did they manage to do that? How did they manage to have 5 million GCI but not be profitable? Where was all the money going?
So the money in running, like overpaying for help, right? Paying too much, the overpaying agents too much, just carrying too many expenses. You got to run a mean, lean business in order to run profitably, quite honestly, on there. And it's very easy not to. There's in our industry, I think I get every week someone's trying to sell me a product, a service, a solution, or whatever, and it's always the same pitch, Howard. Just one transaction will pay for this, and all of a sudden you look at their P&L, Howard, and they've got a mile long of expenses. They're not using half of them, or the other ones aren't performing. So here's another thing I would tell you. Anytime you're working with me and we're going to spend money on something, I want to know how we're going to 3x that cost, right? If you're going to bring a sales manager in for 100, how is he going to increase our revenue by at least $300,000 as an example? So
Right,
whenever we
let me interject there for a second. So, Mike, the first really good presentation I ever put together, which was a really long time ago when I was the founder and CEO of Tiger Lead Solutions, I came to this conclusion because I had been in business for a while and I had sold a company to a public company, wasn't in real estate at all, had a business background. And I realized that while my clients were awesome people, I loved them, they were a riot, and they were great real estate agents, and they knew everything about the real estate transaction, that many of them, it was very rare to find someone who's actually truly understood the nuts and bolts of the business and the P&L and the balance sheet and all of that. It was sort of like at the end of just being crazy and having this crazy life, they're like, we have money left over, right?
Yeah.
So I wrote this presentation and it was called, It's All About ROI. That was the presentation. It was called, It's All About Return on Investment, right? And it's this philosophy that I've always had in being the CEO of fairly large companies, which is looking at every asset in the business, like a person, right?
Yeah.
We sometimes get people who are just kind of showing up and we're really not getting an ROI on them. Like when you really dig deep, they're nice, whatever, but they're not producing more from the business than what they're costing. We look at all of our sort of software as a service that we pay for. We look at all the marketing that we do. We look at everywhere where we spend money. So we go through this with a fine-tooth comb. Everywhere we spend money, you literally have to go and download, and you can explain this, every single penny that goes out the door and categorize it, label it, and say, what's the return on investment, that multiple you're just talking about, that I'm getting on that expense? So you can sort of order where you should spend more and where you spend less, because that's the other issue. It's not just cutting out these expenses that don't produce ROI. It's also not spending enough when we see, oh my God, I'm 5xing Zillow.
Right. You double down on the pillars that are working, you double down on, you pull back on the ones that are not performing. And that's how you start to grow the profitability within the company. Absolutely. I'll give you a quick story about like the size and profitability. Was I had a client, and just before they hired me, they had a whole bunch of agents, and I'll say 15 agents or so, millions of dollars in revenue, but they brought in a couple $100,000. So I'll give you an idea of diagnosis. So in interviewing them, Howard, the husband, real hard driver personality, like in your face, like kind of police officer, military background. The wife, who runs the back end, is a high analytic, right? Just very detailed, but both of those have very little relationship abilities, right? They're both very logic driven, not relationship driven. So they hated the team, and the team wasn't making any money, and they were getting frustrated. So I said, we made a couple $100,000. How about we get rid of everybody, all the expenses, right? Just need one buyer's agent to maybe run a couple open houses. And you're a great listing agent. What if we just bring in one listing or so a week for 1 year? What do you think about that? It'd be super easy, right? You can definitely do that. So Howard, that second year, that team, much smaller, 2 people essentially, part-time, made $1.1 million. Was that a good diagnosis to shrink them, not grow them based on their personality? Absolutely it was. And that was a much better decision for them. And then we got them to buy an investment.
So they made a lot more. They made 5x more. They went down to like them and a buyer's agent. What about their happiness factor? Where did that go?
Oh, huge. They were able to, now they had money. They bought a big giant motorhome so they could travel with their family because they don't like airline travel. Now we're able to buy an investment home once a quarter, every quarter. So their financial future is now secure. I think they're a lot happier than they were trying to manage a whole bunch of people for just enough money to pay the bills, is where they were at the time.
So Leslie has another granular question, then I'm going to get to a larger question. The 12% employee wages, does that include the team lead? Is the
Team lead, no, it depends where you are, I would tell you. If you're at a point, here's another big challenge I will tell you with businesses, as I see it, is very few of them. I always ask this one question when I first get someone who wants to potentially work with me, Howard, and no one has ever given me an answer. So the question is this, Howard, what is your exit strategy? And no one has one. And no one has ever given me a clear exit strategy, because the way I build a business for you or with you as your fractional CEO will be determined on how you want to exit the business, years from now. And how we build it is really important to that exit strategy when they come in. And then what was the other question? What's the beginning of that question?
So I know some folks.
Oh, wait, let me finish her question.
Yeah,
It was about the salary.
the 12%,
So, yeah, so if you're a newer business and you're just getting this stuff working, I would not take a salary and I would drop any of those profits to the bottom line, and you could take it as profit sharing or some kind of stuff to your corporation. If you're getting bigger, like I said, you're getting ready to sell, you do want to have that salary in there, because the person who buys your business is going to need to fill that position when you vacate it. And we want to keep those percentages clean to show them when they take over your business. So it's two answers there, depending where you are, quite frankly, is where I would position that money.
No, I don't know if you and I actually agree on this, because my sort of take is that I think that they need to have a long-term plan. It's not necessarily an exit strategy. It is a long-term strategy. So in other words, I know this husband and wife, they're out of Connecticut. They are no spring chickens. I mean, they are really, really advanced in age.
Right.
They love what they do. They absolutely love what they do. Their plan, and they're part of that sort of Warren Buffett school for, like, I'm working till I'm working till the very end, right? Because that's part of their DNA. And so they weren't really looking to sell, but so their sort of exit strategy was to not exit, but to basically have an investment strategy, and also to groom people under them so they could work less, still be part of the business, but create a cash machine, which allowed them to not fully exit, still be part of it, but partially exit, right? And so I think it's like this overarching, there could be different long-term strategies, not necessarily, I mean, it's great too, like if you could sell your business and sell the whole thing and that's what you want to do, I respect that as well. But I think it's, I was wondering, like, do you work with a variety of strategies?
Yeah, we're on the same page. When I said we need an exit strategy, the exit strategy gives you options, right? We build a company so that, God forbid they got sick, I would have that team, that business structured and operationalized, that if they had to step out because of health reasons, we could bring someone else in, a CEO or a top sales agent, and that business could still run and provide income for them. But you are correct, especially in real estate. I think more than any other industry I've worked in, Howard, is people get enamored and in love with the grind. This is my identity, right? This is what I do. Everyone knows me. I'm the Joe, the real estate agent in town or whatever. And they don't want to give that up, because they say, if I don't do this, what would I do? I've literally asked this question many times, like, hey, if we sold the business, what would you do? And very rarely do I have a solid answer. Like, this is the next chapter of my life. That, to your point, in the office I worked in, Douglas Elliman, no joke. One gentleman was mid-90s that when we knew he was coming to the office, all the people with nice cars would move their cars, because he'd literally bounce off a couple of cars because he couldn't see to get into the parking stall in the office. And then same office, two gals needed hip replacement and knee replacement surgeries, because same thing, they're up in their 70s, 80s, I guess, or whatever. They couldn't show two-story homes anymore. And they just had to work until, there's a joke out there I heard a long time ago was, have you ever been to a real estate retirement party? And I was like, I don't think so. Well, yeah, you have. It's called a funeral. Like, you just work until you die, and that's your retirement party. Everyone meets at the funeral to say goodbye. So what I like to do is give my clients options. If they want to work until they're 90, great. But at some point, if they wanted to, you could bring someone in to run your company, or it's set up where you could sell it, for a profit if you'd like. I learned not everyone knows you can do that. I had a client, older gentleman for years, and he said, Mike, thanks for the great coaching. I'm just going to kind of hang it up, at the end of our coaching contract. And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, well, yeah, I'm going to retire. Me and my wife are just going to relax, play some tennis. Like, what are you going to do with the business? He's like, I'm just going to shut the lights. And after doing some math, I was able to get him, Howard, over $2 million over a next 5 years in passive income from selling his business to his broker, who then will give him a percentage of all the listings that he's farmed for the last 30 years that everyone knows, and that will still keep coming in for at least another 5 years. So options is all I provide my clients. They can do whatever they want. If they want to work till they're 100 and stay there, great. But if they call me and say, hey, I want to live with my kids and move to Europe tomorrow, we could do that as well.
So if I'm running a team, again, small team, medium-sized team, large team, and I bring you in as my coach, my expectation.
Howard,
yep.
you froze for a second. Go back 30 seconds.
Okay, can you hear me?
Now I can, yeah.
Okay, so I'm running a team, could be a small team, medium-sized team, and I start working with you. My expectation, especially since you're called Profits Coaching, is I want by the end of this journey or within a year or whatever it is, I want to be making more. I want you to grow my profits, maximize my profits, all that. But can you break down what is the not everyone's typical, but what does that sort of typical journey look like in terms of when we start? Like what are we doing? And then kind of mid-journey, what's happening next? And by the sort of the latter part of the journey where things start really clicking, what does that now look like?
Yeah, a great question. I've seen this pattern now, so I could articulate this really well. But by the time people get to me, Howard, they've built some sort of organization, right? There might be a 30, 40, 50 million or more, but that's kind of the starting point where someone like me would be useful to you. So in looking at their business, because they didn't know how to build it right the first time, Howard, many times, fortunately, unfortunately, we have to strip down the business. A lot of the hires they made weren't the right hires, or they're overpaying them so much they could never be profitable, or they have all different compensation packages for all the agents on there, right? You can't scale a business like that. So the first thing, again, is the diagnosis. Let's see what you have here is something that we could work with and grow. But here's what happens in reality, Howard, is that small business, you're just happy to have someone take your leads, run your open house, and you just, whatever, 60%, whatever you want, just please help me. I'm dying over here because I'm a really good listing agent. So as they get into step 2, that's when they call me. And what do we have to do? We have to operationalize their business, Howard, right? We got to create standards. We got to create accountability. How do you think the people that started with you that had no accountability, no Maverick, there was no tracking or measuring or anything, and all of a sudden you're like, hey team, now we're going to be tracking all this stuff and we're going to be measuring and we're going to be holding you accountable. You know what they say? Oh, I don't like that. It was never like that before. And more times than not, most of those people are going to leave. And now you got to recruit. So phase 2, the second thing, what we're going to do is bring in people that understand there's a standard here. We have a culture here. There's certain things you need to do to stay on this team or receive leads, as an example. So then I'll build them through that, right? So 50 million, 100, 150 million. And then after you get past about 150 million, now your team's bigger. You've got maybe 50, 100 agents on there, right? You're generating a lot of leads. You could be approaching anywhere up to $1 billion in revenue or more. Then what I do is I get under your hood, Howard, and just by changing the conversion of 1 or 2 lead sources from say 2% to 4%, will bring you in hundreds of thousands, if not millions, right? Improving the recruiting and agent production per month, units per month. So small changes when your team is that big will bring in 6 to 7 figures if you know where to look and you know how to fix them on there. Sometimes
I think most teams, obviously you work with really large teams, but most teams are sort of, in reality, sort of 5 to 15 agents, let's say, right? Yeah. What I've seen. So when you're working with a team that's maybe there are even 3 people on the team or whatever, but they aspire to be 15, whatever it is. But that sort of 5 to 15 range. What are the most important things you're doing there? What are you fixing specifically? And what are the goals for those guys?
Yeah. So we just mentioned, probably not meaning, there were 3 models I've seen in building a team that can work, bring you good profits and a life that you'd really enjoy. So you mentioned a couple of times these big giant teams, right? That's an organization with a lot of people, leadership, and that kind of stuff. So that aside, the other 2 options, the first one I mentioned, right? It's you and maybe one other person, super small, very low expenses, right? So there, all we're doing is driving profitability, right? What's the highest lead source conversion that you can get, listings, and we'll just work on bringing in a lot of revenue at super high profit, very low cost, very small organization, like you said, 5, 4, 2, 3 people. The middle one is interesting. What happens in the middle is generally, Howard, a high expressive personality who's really good at listings. They're so good, they need to get some people around them, those 5 or 10, 15 buyer's agents, showing agents, someone to handle the TC work, because now they've got some challenges. The challenge there, if you expressives hate numbers. They're never tracking, they're never measuring, so they're never profitable. So they bring me in to be the guy to figure out the numbers and to make the suggestions on how to get their business, because they love sales. They want that's the agent who's going to do this probably forever. I will tell you, that middle, high expressive, great listing agent who just everyone loves in town and just outgoing, gregarious, right? Good relationship builder. So they attract people to their team very easily, but they don't have the focus to train them to scale the business or look at the numbers very well in that middle model. But you can build one and be very profitable. There, if you have that model, I would caution anyone in the audience what you want to look for. The team, Howard, has to be bringing in more profit and revenue than the expense is costing you. Otherwise, that listing agent.
A lot of times, Mike, I remember sitting down with just one of my favorite clients, just a great guy. And we sat down in Austin. He wanted to grab a cup of coffee. I said, sure. And he just, was kind of expressing to me that he was just stuck. It was like him, some family members. It was like 4 or 5 people. And he's ambitious. He really was ambitious, and he just felt stuck. He just didn't know how to grow. And, I don't think I was that much help. I just said, look, you it's something that I do, like, as like I'm part of a peer advisory group with people that are incredibly impressive, like just incredibly. I feel humbled when I'm in the room, so I can learn from them. And I just say, like, that's what you got to do. You got to get out there. You got to start, getting some mentors, maybe a coach. Got to start going to, to some of these masterminds. Just learn from some of the folks who've done it. But do you ever get that? Do you ever get that sort of team of like 4 or 5, and the team owner just says, I'm treading water. I don't want to tread water anymore. I'm treading water. And for anyone in our audience today, man, like, what are the top thing? Like, if you were having coffee with him, right? What would you say that they really need to do? Or if you started working with them, like, what are you really going to do to unstick them and get them to that next level?
Well, like I said, I'd diagnose it. I'd have to know a couple things about their business, but I'll tell you where I would look first, right? So number one, if they wanted to, when you say they're stuck, did they want to grow in profits and revenue, or what's the
stuck? Same everything, same value.
Yeah. So what happens there? That sounds somewhat. They need to improve.
Same number of people. Yeah.
So like recruiting, to give you an example, in my schedule for years and the teams I'm working with right now, the average agent on a team working with me will bring in about $50,000 a year. So simply, if they told me they wanted to grow $250,000 next year, we would bring in 10 agents this year. 30% wouldn't make the first couple of weeks because they realize they have to pick up the phone and call people. We'll lose 2 more of them, but by the start of next year, January, we'll have 5 agents that will produce $50,000 each. And that's one easy way I could bring in $250,000.
You're going to be in the weeds, literally teaching them how to get, let's say, 10 more agents, how to winnow the crowd and make sure like a few of them don't stay, basically, how to know who to stay, who to keep, who not to keep growing the real agents who can do at least that 50,000 in profitability to the business. Yeah.
Here's the fundamental difference when you're with a new client, a new agent on it, you do something called consultative coaching. Because Howard says, I look at your numbers. Hey, Howard, you didn't hit the monthly goal. You didn't have enough sales. So there, instead of me telling you why, you want them to self-discover. So Howard, why do you think we didn't hit the goal this month, right? Why didn't you get those, 4 sales you said you were? And you got to let them figure out, because it's simple. They didn't make enough calls, or they didn't get enough appointments, right, on there. So, but when you get to this level, they don't know what to do next. They don't know what they're not doing. So it's more directive coaching. And this is a fundamental difference. So just like all coaching companies, you get your standard calls, for a fee every month. But you asked this question earlier, how much time do I spend in between the 30-minute calls? Hours, Howard, is I'm looking at all of your metrics. they don't know how to interview top leadership people, C-level people. So a lot of times I'm helping them interview top people to vet them to see if they'll be a good fit for the team. This week, I was on a demo with one of my people because there was a software solution that might be a good fit. I wasn't sure, they weren't sure. So I said, all three of us, let's hop on a call. And two brains are better than one to decide if this will work for them. And then they have access. Because say your call was 9 o'clock on Monday morning, Howard, and the shit hit the fan Tuesday morning. Do you wait 6 days for me to help you? In my world, no. You call me on Tuesday, text me. Even if I'm busy, I'm going to find a way to get you back on track or figure out the solution to your most recent challenge on there. So it's fractional CEO services. Consulting is what we offer. I have to call it coaching because that's what the industry labels this kind of service, but it's so far from real estate coaching at the end of the day.
So let's expand on that. So really what you're saying is, in a sense, you're really a high-level business consultant, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Like a management consultant, right? Very specific to the real estate business, which is your background. So just flesh out a little bit more. If someone said, man, I really want to understand what's going to be the biggest difference of working with Mike at Profits Coaching versus working with lots of other coaches, how would you get granular on that or sum up sort of?
Yeah,
I know you've mentioned it a little bit, but again, like how the experience will be different for me as a small team leader, let's say.
Yeah, so the first thing is obviously having worked with, I've encountered with hundreds and hundreds of teams and managed billions of dollars. I've pretty much built every variation you could build. So you would hire me. First reason is whatever your goal is. Say a 5-year plan is a good example. I will, if you don't have one, I'll help you build one. I'll almost always execute that in 2.5 to 3 years max. So speed, I can get you to your goal a hell of a lot faster than you can. Not that I'm not smart, Howard, is that I was A/B testing with 48 teams, something every week. So I had 96 A/B tests going on for years. I've tested so many things. I kind of know what works really well. And I failed so many times, I can tell you, don't try all this shit. I've done it 10 times. It's just not going to work on there. So speed is one. And then again, because I'm just committed to profitability, you're going to most likely, in almost every case, be a lot more profitable working with me because that's what I focus on. I'm looking at that number every week in between our calls to make sure it's where it needs to be. And here's why. Let me give you an example, the observation I made. Most of the coaching out here, who does the coaching? They're real estate agents, right? They're real estate agents, kind of like myself, and I just happen to have a very solid background in all building small businesses. So just by accident, Howard, I have the perfect background to do this. 20 years in real estate, I built 10 companies on my own, sold a bunch, right? And I've been in sales my whole life. So you take those three, it's a powerhouse to be able to get on a call, and I could pretty much address and fix any problem in your organization, help you build it or sell it. But here's what I wanted to get to. Most of the coaches out there are real estate agents that know real estate. What are the personality styles of all the best real estate agents out there? They're drivers and expressives, or expressives and drivers most of the time. Both of them, drivers like details. They don't like to get into the nitty gritty of a P&L, and expressives never want to see a number if they can help it, right? They're into images, relationships like that. So most of the people leading teams don't like the numbers either and have never played with the numbers or learned to love the numbers. I don't love numbers, but if you're in business, you got to learn the numbers, because the difference between a CEO and someone who owns a job versus a business, CEOs, I'm sure like yourself, you get up, you check your dashboard, you check your metrics, right? Where these others are checking their email, right? And checking for their problems and how to react to them today versus creating and doing deep work in the morning. So there's a lot of fundamentals I teach them, Howard, on how to convert their job into a business and run it like a business, like it should. Because these companies come to me 100, 200, 300, sometimes $1 billion in revenue, and they're not run very well. They're not organized because they just don't know how. Nobody went to Harvard or Wharton to figure this stuff out. It's a little bit cheaper and a little bit faster just to call me, and I will help you.
So one of the questions here is, what's your best advice for a team under 5 people just getting started?
Just getting started, fundamentals. But it's the foundation. Like I told you, if you don't build it right, a couple of years from now, you're going to start all over, right? So hire a coach as soon as you could, right? That can teach you how to structure your economics properly, how to structure the organization, right? How to build the right lead pillars that are going to bring in the revenue into your company properly. And I could riff on that a second. just a challenge.
Sure.
Less than about a year ago, I did a survey. I was kind of seeing where the market was and what teams were doing. And out of the teams that were mid to large, 75% of almost all of them were supplying their pipeline, their business from third-party aggregators, which I think is absolutely insane, knowing that they could change their model pricing any day. So teams need to learn how to start hunting again, Howard, with this whole DOJ lawsuit that potentially could come and buy side could be reduced or eliminated on there. Most of these teams are very buy side heavy because it's easy just to call up a lead company and get leads to feed your team. They are wickedly expensive. Like, I don't know how the hell you keep that 30% profit margin when you're losing 35% right off the top. Like, it makes it pretty tough.
Rumor has it it's going to 40%.
I heard that last night as well.
Yeah. Well, one thing that's interesting, this is not the point of this webinar, but Northwest MLS changed about, I think it's now almost 4 years ago, and did not mandate it. Like, you don't have to put in a buyer agent commission at all. And I went digging, like, what's happened over the 4 years. Buyer agent commissions haven't changed.
Yep.
Right. So
you know why? Because in the marketplace, like in certain marketplaces, it varies. Is you'll be looked down upon by other agents if you put listings out at lower than what the average buyer broker commission is on there. So to keep good face in the community, some agents, for sure, not to get that backlash, in their local community, put out larger, but even Bright this I think last week now made it.
Right, just changed. Yeah. I mean, where Northwest MLS is going, it may have happened already, and there may be someone on here who's in that MLS will know more than me, and I haven't looked at it recently, but where they're going in the state is that the buyer agent actually has to have an agreement with the buyer. So they literally have to disclose what they're making and where it's coming from. But people would get nervous about it. I'm like, oh no, this is the greatest thing ever for a buyer's agent. It's like, anyone working with buyer has to have a buyer agent agreement. It's like, I didn't want to make you do it, but the state makes you do it, right?
Yeah.
So, right.
Let me share with you, because we are so similar. I got into real estate, Howard. I was in real estate, probably my first year, had a buyer, showed him 20, 30 houses, right? And he loved me, they loved me, and whatever, some weekend came by and they went to an open house and it was their house, right? They write the offer. Howard, they come to my office. Mike, oh my God, you're the best. Thank you so much. All those houses. Yeah, guess what happened? We went to this open house and they accepted our offer. We're closing in like 3 weeks. And we just wanted to say thank you. So as soon as we close, Howard, we're going to have you over for dinner. I was like, that is never going to happen again. So 20 years ago, Howard, I took a 3-day class in upstate New York, and any buyer 20 years ago, if you wanted to work with me, you were signing a buyer broker contract. So I've been using those for 20 years because I would never give all my time and resources to someone with no guarantee I could get not paid after putting
I don't want to get
like
totally derailed there, but I'm much more optimistic about what would happen if that changed. But everyone's really, really paranoid about it. So, Mike, some people are asking specifically about your business. Like, first off, what website should they go to check you out? And maybe Kiwi or Michelle could actually post that on the chat if they haven't already done it. Also, like, how do you charge? What do you charge? And I'm assuming, and this is another question, which is, what kind of ROI do you want them to get from you? Because obviously you don't want to be a cost center. You don't want to be like, you cost them more than they made. You want them to have a multiple return. Correct. And can you talk about that at all? And
if anyone in the audience knows me, I'm as transparent as anything. You can ask me anything, and I'm always going to give you the straight answer. So first, I'm not for everyone. First of all, my style, and then the fees. This isn't cheap, coaching how to, do scripting or an open house. So at first I do is I analyze your business to see, is there that upside? Because I would freak out personally if you paid me a lot of money, Howard. And same as I said in the business, if I can 3, 5, or 10x what you're going to pay me, I do not want to work with you. I will not work with you. So I first have to look at your business and see those opportunities, and I get 3, 5, or 10x the fee that you're paying me. So then, based on the size of your business, is where the fee comes in. Because obviously, a $50 million company is a lot less complex than a $1 billion company. And then the fee will be associated, depending on how many hours I got to put in between the call to get you to target that you wanted to increase or improve your, but it's very selective. It's not like everyone sign up like a webinar and you get 1,000 people. Yeah, it's going to be it's all one-on-one customized coaching. It's not like there's a game plan I follow, but there's not one size, like I'm doing the same thing. My 48 teams, Howard, there were 48 different organizations that I was leading, all a little bit different. Like, here's a good example. One team was a purist. We just want to sell single family homes. Don't talk to me about anything else. Another team, we had 16 now ancillary businesses attached to a team and a brokerage on there. So really it's what the client wants. And then we'll develop a customized program for them to get them the result they want, guaranteed. Otherwise, I wouldn't want to take your money or anyone's money for that matter.
How long does it typically take? I mean, and I know it's all over the board, right? Depending on what you have to fix, but any guidance on if someone's like, okay, I'm really interested in this, but how long does it take normally to see measurable results? To the point where the client's thrilled and you're thrilled.
Yeah, depends on where you were, like I mentioned earlier. If you're in that part where we have to strip every down and rebuild it, it's going to be somewhere early into getting to the early part of our second year together. If I don't have to strip it down and we could fix a few of the problems, I'll get you profitable in under a year, much more profitable. Like I said, say it was a year program we were working together, whatever you paid in that year, I'm going to 3x that number. At least could be 5, it could be 10, depending on how much I could find that you're missing.
Got it. So, sort of let's finish up with the current economic environment that we're in, because we're all living in this current economic environment. Wondering, so obviously what we're seeing is, record low inventory. We're seeing a vicious seller lock where 75% of all households have mortgages under 4%, 90% have mortgages under 5%. Nobody wants a 7% mortgage, so they're waiting, right? And so that hurts inventory even more. Okay, this is kind of the world that we're living in. Have you been addressing this specifically with your clients? And if so, what's the tip? What are the tips? What are the advice? What mistakes are they making? What are they not doing that they should be doing? And I fervently believe, now it may not be till 24, I fervently believe what goes up comes down, what comes down goes up. We will eventually see rates come down. I don't think it's going to be free money again. I have a 2.65% mortgage, and I don't think I'm seeing that again, right? But I think we get to a point, they just recently talked about a tipping point of like 5.5%. I think it's slightly higher than that, but in between 5.5 and 5.9%, whatever, you're going to see a massive flood of inventory. Like people are going to be like, okay, it's close enough. And we know that 75% of all homeowners want to sell, actually. So having said that, this is where we're living. What's your advice to the folks that are on the call?
Yep. So Howard, it's much better to be prepared for a situation and for it not to happen than for it to happen and not be prepared. So when there's less sales and when business slows down, you know what all the agents do? They slow down. So you know what all my teams are doing that I'm working with? We're doubling down on our database and every seller we can get a hold of, and we're interacting with them heavily because no one can predict the top or bottom of a market. No one knows when interest rates. I'm with you. I do believe that 5.5 is definitely obtainable sooner than later. But once that you wake up tomorrow morning and it's 5.5 and you haven't maintained these relationships at a deep level, do you know, NAR says that the average person knows at least 10 people with a real estate license. 3 or 4 of them probably at a high level of trust. Do you know who's going to get the call tomorrow morning, Howard? When the seller says, today's the day, Mary, we're going to put the house on the market. Say there's 3 or 4 agents that they know, like, and trust. Do you know who's getting the call tomorrow?
Tell me.
It's the one that got engaged with last. Who did you talk to last? Who did you have coffee with last? Who did you have dinner with? So my teams are just doubling down while the sales are a little bit slower, knowing not exactly when, but sometime in the near future, anyone that could be a potential sale is you build that relationship now and you just wait for the interest rates to come down. And the other would be, again, listing pillars, right? These teams are too heavy on the buy side. They need to generate more hunted FSBOs, expireds, whatever, PPC, what all that stuff, Google stuff, and start owning their own businesses, not renting it from third-party companies that, like you said, are going to change their model, like we both heard yesterday. So,
yeah, well, we're working on some really cool seller stuff to tease out more listings. I know that if I'm ever looking to, to sell a home, the first thing I do is go online and start looking at homes where I potentially want to buy. So we know that what appear to be buyers, we know that 50% of them at a minimum are actually sellers, right? And it's actually the first part in their journey. So it's where to get in front of a seller first. But we're going to be doing a lot of other stuff that we're pretty excited about. We are launching a whole new lead product. We're really, really busy at Ylopo. We're launching a whole new lead product, which is going to basically produce appointments more than just leads, right? So we call it Ylopo Live Leads. We're moving from alpha to beta test. It's going really, really well. And basically it's just getting people that want to talk to you right now and schedule an appointment. And we know that if you're getting appointments, you can feed the house a lot sooner, right? We're working on something. We're going to double down on that, working on something called Appointment Accelerator. So with live leads, we're producing all these new leads. We're working it for 30 days. So it's all new leads that actually yield appointments versus just leads, right? But then all the folks that don't turn into appointments in the first 30, 60 days, they'll also then get nurtured long-term. We're going to working on this thing called Appointment Accelerator. Finally, we never wanted to do it, but now we're going to do it because we have more information on our clients' databases than anyone else. We're doing something called Appointment Accelerator, where for those clients that feel they need the help and don't want to spend $5,000 or $6,000 or $7,000 a month on an ISA or whatever it is, we're going to work the leads. We're going to basically see all the down conversations, the riot conversations, the priority alerts. We're going to call, we're going to text, again, produce appointments. And then finally, what you and I have been geeking out about, because you and I are both geeks, is Maverick. And Maverick is right here, measurement, accountability, visibility. So I was wondering if you can comment on this, because this tool has not been released. It's getting released basically in September. And if you can just comment on that a little bit on how you might use Maverick with your coaching clients.
Yeah, so like I said, you need to have access to data. First, you got to track your data, then you got to store your data somewhere accurately. So Maverick is the perfect tool for yourself or for a coach, where you wake up every morning, you can check your dashboard to see what the health of your business is, versus the other option they probably had was like spreadsheets, right? I learned with spreadsheets, a lot of times they're behind, they're human error, the numbers are inaccurate, they're super labor intensive. So in order to get to these teams, if you wanted to be middle to large after those 5 agents, you need to simplify a business, and through automation, the technology. You're not going to be able to run $1 billion company on spreadsheets or manually on whiteboards on that. So you need products like Maverick, where you get access to data in real time very quickly to make decisions. Because that's one of the other challenges with people that don't grow quickly. They make slow decisions or no decisions at all. So you see the data, you make a decision, and if you either win or you learn, well, that didn't work, so try it another way. But Maverick will allow people to make much quicker decisions so they can get to those goals a lot faster, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I think, obviously we're going to measure every lead source. We're going to measure every person. We're going to, as one of your great ideas, crosshatch, like which agents do best on which lead sources and which agents should be pulled from certain lead sources, right? We're going to measure all the stages, calls, emails, phone calls, but we're going to measure all the stages, like how many appointments being set, how many appointments being attended, how many, offers are being written, how many pending. We're going to measure all of that kind of stuff by all the people. But I think where Maverick is different is we're also going to build in action items. We're building in action items, whether it's sophisticated lead routing and distribution, or whether it's nudging your agents to make their data, update their data, or alerting them that they have a down funnel opportunity, alerting them as who are the best opportunities to get in touch with right now, using AI to literally listen to sales calls and give them notes on how they can improve their calls. Like, I think building a lot of action that we're deriving from all the data yields insight, yields action. I think that's where it's going to be really different. And I'm beyond, excited about it. And I'm beyond excited to work with you, because I know you're going to have insights along with our clients to continually make that product better. So to lead off, to end off, how would someone get in touch with you if they're interested in exploring this potential relationship?
Yes. So right now it's pretty funny because I didn't have a grand master plan to start a coaching company. But what happened, Howard, was all last year, while I was taking care of my son, he was sick, that I was getting calls like, no, I can't do it, I'm not doing anything. So then when the market shifted, Howard, I wasn't getting calls from teams anymore. I was getting calls from national lead companies, national software companies, national brokerages. All the teams on our platform are not making any money. They're having a hard time paying their bills. Can you help us? Can you help us? I'm getting all this stuff. So I was like, Lisa, the industry kind of needs us. So we said, all right, let's kind of jump back in, figure out where the need is. And so In a soft launch, I would tell you right now is that, I mean, people kind of heard this rumor that I might be doing some coaching and stuff. So we've got a whole bunch of people already signed up. But about a month or so, you'll see a lot of stuff on social. But if they want to reach me and set up a call, talk to, if I could offer any help to anyone, I'm always a yes. I love helping people. Just reach out on social, either Mike Schumm on Facebook or Mike Schumm _ on Instagram or LinkedIn. You can reach me there as well. And then, yeah, just keep your eyes open. I think there's a Profits Facebook page out there maybe, but for now, Howard, we're about 30 days out before we actually make a big announcement and a big splash. So I thank you for the preview here. I appreciate
somebody
the
will be getting
audience.
to you early, and they can just reach Mike Schumm on Facebook or
Yeah,
LinkedIn.
real simple.
Since you haven't really launched yet, so that's really interesting. Well, I hope that this call has been valuable for everybody in the audience. I know, again, from having talked to you at length, that you are very granular. You get really in the weeds. You and I are total geeks and nerds when it comes to dissecting, looking at the numbers, which is not everyone's greatest strength, which is why you and I are needed in the world, right?
Yeah.
But you can go in, dissect the problems, come up with amazing solutions, great plans, help with recruiting, help with with getting rid of whacking expenses that are not working, increasing expenses where they can get greater ROI. And at the end of the day, you're all aligned, which is maximize profits, make more, be happier, live a better, more profitable life. So
that is my goal in life. If I can do that for as many people as I can, as long as I can, I'm a happy camper.
Yeah. And I know that you've got a great heart and you care a lot about your clients, and you're very passionate about what you do. And that's why we work with you. So, Mike, thank you so much. Super grateful that you're part of our Ylopo family and soon be part of our Maverick family. And really excited to see you work with and help a lot of our folks in our community.
Thank you so much, Howard. I'm looking forward to it as well. All right. So long, everyone. Thank you so much for your time.
Bye-bye.
Talk soon. Bye-bye.